Hey everyone, it's Heather with Tiller here. Thanks so much for joining me for this special webinar, specifically for all those users who are coming to us from Mint. We're excited to have you, and we're excited to do this special webinar to help you get transitioned over to Tiller. So let's dive in. First, I'll be doing a demo of how to transition your Mint data from Mint into Tiller and get set up in Tiller in the foundation template, talk a little bit about how Tiller works, how it's different and similar from Mint. We'll have a Q&A portion towards the end of the session, but you can feel free to add your question at any point during the session. A lot of the questions I'll probably go over during the demo and just what I have planned, but feel free to go ahead and put them out. If for some reason I've already kind of covered that topic, when I get to your question in the Q&A, I'll skip it. Or if there's something that I won't quite be able to demo during the Q&A, then I'll just let you know, and I'll try to make sure to include some resources for you in the resources email that you'll get tomorrow. And so speaking of, when it's over, you'll be prompted to complete a quick feedback survey, and then you'll get an email about this time tomorrow with a link to some resources, a video recording, a recording of the video so you can watch it again. If I talk too fast or I go over things through too fast, you can pause it and kind of rewatch and go through it. And then lots of links to different resources that I'll be talking through live in the demo. You'll get that tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in here. All right, I like to start the demo off here from the perspective of, someone who's already signed up for Tiller. They've connected a few financial institutions here on the Tiller console. You can see in my connected account summary, I've got Barclay, Capital One, Vanguard accounts. We can connect to many different types of accounts, including your investment institutions, savings, banking, all your loans, things like that. It's a wide array of accounts you can get connected to Tiller. So in the demo here, this demo account, I've got a few accounts connected. Some of the accounts I also have connected to Mint. And so when we get to those steps, we'll kind of see that overlap there. And then I've already also gone ahead and linked a Google Sheet to Tiller and got that filled with some data. And that's kind of the point that I'm starting this demo from. So just keep in mind that this demo is focused on Google Sheets. I won't have time to demo both the steps for Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel for transitioning the data, but I will be sure to include a link to the resource for transitioning the data into Microsoft Excel workbooks as well in that email you'll get tomorrow. So here on the console, any spreadsheets you already have linked that are Google Sheets, you can just click on the name and then click open here to open the spreadsheet. And so as I mentioned, I've already filled this spreadsheet with data from one of the accounts that I have linked to Mint that I want to transition the Mint data over into Tiller. And so you may have been with Mint for a very long time and have a lot of categorized data over there, and you don't want to lose it. And so that's kind of the starting point for this transition, is helping you get that data out of Mint with all your categorizations and over into Tiller. And so the first thing I like to do for this is to go into Mint. I'm already logged in here. Just selected the transactions. I'm going to just pull the transaction data for all the accounts. And so if you just scroll to the bottom of the page here, then you can get to export however many transactions. I think the max for one export is like 10,000 or something. So you may have to do some paging to get all of them. But in my case, I didn't really use Mint because I'm a Tiller user, and so I don't have a whole lot of data in here, but I'll go ahead and just click this export button, and that's going to download a CSV onto my computer. And so I'm just going to find that here in the downloads folder, and then we're going to do a little bit of prep to get the categories over from the Mint export into Tiller. And so in my Google Drive here, drive.google.com, I've got the CSV files folder, which is where I want to just drop that CSV file into the Google Drive. And then I'm going to go ahead and just double click, and then I can choose to open it with Google Sheets here. And I'm doing all this because I want to get that unique list of categories that Mint populated. Because when I pull this data in using a different add-on that I'll demo for you guys, I want to make sure that all the categories are set up because it's already categorized, and that makes things really quick and easy. So I've got all the categories here, right? But there's a bunch of transactions And so that means that there's going to be duplicates, like duplicate category instances in this list. So I just want to find the unique list of categories. So if I just enter in a really simple formula, equals unique here, and then I can say F2 through F, that is going to generate a unique list of categories for me that I can then pull over into my tiller sheet. So before I copy that and paste it over, I'm going to, in my tiller foundation template, I'm going to go into the category sheet here, and I'm just going to select this first cell. These are all our example categories, which you're totally free to just use these and fill your data in and start categorizing using these categories and skip all these steps of pulling the Mint data over or pulling the categories over. It's really up to you, but I like to demo that because I know people have a lot of history there. So I'm just going to select all of these categories, everything in these first 4 columns, and I'm just going to clear them out because I want a clean slate here to paste that unique categories list from my Mint export. So I'm going to select the first one in the list here, hold Shift and select the bottom one. And then I'm just using, Control C on my keyboard here to copy that list. And then I'm going to do a paste special, values only, and then I get that list of categories. Now you can see that the group column now is yellow, and that's just kind of alerting me that I need to do something. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're going to come back to that step, but we will need to fill in a group and a type. And so for now, I'm just trying to get that categories list in. So when I pull my Mint data into Tiller in the transaction sheet, all the categories will be valid because I've already pre-populated them here in the category sheet. So on my transaction sheet, I have a similar set of data than what I pulled from Mint. There's an account that Mint was able to aggregate and pull the data from that Tiller isn't. I can't automate it in Tiller, and so I track that one manually. And so that one's not included in this list, but because there's a lot of overlap between this list and the data that Mint has, we can kind of just see like most of these transactions, they're already in Mint, they're already categorized, they're also in Tiller, but they're not categorized. And because I'm trying to get that Mint data over into Tiller, I'm just going to clear out the transactions that Tiller filled in because I probably have more history in Mint anyway if I've consistently been using it. So I'm going to go through here and, there's quite a bit of data in here, but I'm just going to go ahead and clear all it out. For most of our new users, you're only going to have around 60 to 90 days worth of transaction data that Tiller was able to pull. And because I don't want any duplicates, I'm just going to clear that out of the transaction sheet. And now I'm going to import the data into the Google Sheet using a separate add-on. So you'll notice here in the extensions menu near the bottom, there's the Tiller Money Feeds add-on. That's the main add-on that you use to link the spreadsheet to Tiller and, to fill the data in. And there's a lot of other features in there that I'm going to cover. So that's the main, core product add-on. And then there's a second add-on that I've already installed just ahead of this demo called the Tiller Community Solutions add-on. And that doesn't come pre-installed. So if you don't have it, you can get it from this add-ons menu here at the top of the extensions menu. And then you can go to get add-ons. And then I already have it installed, but once you get to get add-ons, you can just search for Tiller Community Solutions. And then you can go through the process here of installing it. And then you'll have a lot of benefits of getting the community solutions in your spreadsheet. But the main thing we want with this right now is the CSV import feature. And so once you've got that Tiller Community Solutions add-on installed, you can go ahead and launch it from the extensions menu there. And just a note, we don't have this yet available for Microsoft Excel. We likely won't build a completely separate add-on for Excel. We'll most likely just integrate those features right into Tiller Money Feeds. Even for Google Sheets, we're in the process of transitioning a lot of the features that are in the Tiller Community Solutions add-on into Tiller Money Feeds. So here in the sidebar for the Tiller Community Solutions add-on, if you choose Tools and then you click this Import CSV Line Items option, it's going to prompt you that you need to add a column, and that's fine. That's necessary for this workflow. So I'm going to add column and continue. And then these are just all the different file formats that are supported in the instructions. And so really you just need to click Upload CSV File, And then I'm going to choose that transaction CSV. That's just the one that's already downloaded on my computer. It hasn't had any edits on it. Remember, we just edited the one in the Google Drive as a Google Sheet. So we'll just select the transaction CSV and click open. And it's just going to take a minute to kind of analyze what's in there. Now you can set up some filters here to choose like the start date, so how far back it should pull transactions in, and the end date. And so like how recent of transactions you want to pull in. I would recommend if you have a lot of data, like years, 10, 12 years of data, like I don't recommend trying to pull all of that in with this tool. I'd recommend trying to choose a sooner in start date, because we have had some just data load issues with it, trying to pull in too many years of data. But I think, maybe 3 years, it can probably handle that. Definitely let us know if you find that it's not even handling that. Really just depends on the volume of accounts. So I'm not going to set any filters there. I'm just going to pull everything in, and I don't want it to filter the transactions because I don't have any other data in here, so it doesn't matter. So I'll just choose add to transaction sheet here, and it's just going to pull all of that data in and add it to my transactions sheet in one fell swoop. And it's really quick and easy. And you can see that all of those categories that we pasted into the category sheet are now here in the category column. It's categorized, and I'm not getting any red errors saying like the data's not in the list or whatever, basically. And that's kind of why we did that step. Because if you're familiar with spreadsheets, if some entry you have listed here is not in the list that it's referencing, then it'll be like, this doesn't exist. It'll just basically give you an error. So everything's good with this. So if you're happy with Mint's categories, then you're all set here. You're ready to kind of get started with the rest of this sort of setup and getting to know Tiller. There could be some other cleanup things that you do. Like you might notice, for example, the account name here is different than what Tiller would pull in. Like this was like a Capital One, like REI card. Same thing, like it's not really, the institution looks very different than what Tiller's going to pull in. There's no account number. So those are things that you could manually fill in later once Tiller pulls in some entries, and you can kind of see like, oh, okay, I understand which specific account that is. You can easily edit these entries to be consistent, or you can just not worry about it. It just depends on how clean you want your data. In this case, I'm not going to worry about it. And then if you want to, customize your categories, the main thing is just that we do need to define a group and a type. And then beyond that, we can start finessing those categories to further customize them. If you never customized them in Mint, or you just, you didn't add your own categories in Mint, or you're just dissatisfied with the categories that Mint assigned, that's where you can kind of get into those steps of like further grooming your data. And so you should have a group and a type assigned. And so the way to think about this, like in the Mint paradigm, and like I said, I'm not like a big Mint user, so I don't know exactly. I think I can go here and go to like manage categories, just trying to, for comparison, show you like the difference. So like, there's this auto and transport category, and then there's these subcategories. And the way that we think about this in Tiller is that this would be the group. So it would be an auto and transport group. And then these would be the categories. And so it's very similar structure. It's just different, terminology. So basically like service and parts, this would be like auto and transport. And then this would be an expense. So we want to identify like, is an income, expense, or transfer. And transfers are things like, money moving between your checking account and your savings account, or like credit card payments, things like that. Groceries, what is Mint's sort of one for that? It's probably like living or household or food and dining, right? Groceries. Yeah. So they have one that's like food and dining. So you just think about the group as the bigger bucket, and the category, those categories are more granular and they fall into those buckets. So that's kind of how to think about the hierarchy of the category sheet. Now I already have this kind of mapped out in a separate sheet here. So I'm just going to quickly copy and paste just to keep the demo moving here. And so now you can see I've got my, I actually didn't need that row. I've got my category, group, and type all assigned for all of my categories. So that just makes it pretty quick to get that piece in place. And then let's say, I wanted to change a category that Mint had come up with. I don't really like their categories. And before I didn't really have the power to change them. But now with Tiller, I do have the power to customize my categories based on the way that I want to organize my data. So let's say I don't really like gas and fuel as the category. I just want it to be gas because like, what is the difference between gas and fuel, right? So now I've got those little red invalid errors, but I can easily correct that by using the built-in filtering and sorting features in the spreadsheet. So I'm going to turn on the filter. So I'm just selecting the little rectangle above row 1 and to the left of column A, and then I'm going to turn on the filter. Now I'm going to get this warning that's just like, hey, you know, like, are you sure you know what you're doing? It's basically just protecting row 1 so that you don't blow out those headers in row 1. Because if you did accidentally delete like the word description or category or amounts, then when Tiller fills the data in, it's not going to be able to fill that the data for that column. So just that's why we protect row 1. But anytime you're changing something that affects row 1, like turning on a filter or sorting or filtering the data set, it's going to warn you. So just to make sure you know what you're doing, it's not an accident. So you just click show, don't show for 5 minutes, and then click OK. So I can quickly fix those categories that I modified in a couple ways. I can just go ahead and filter to the old category, which was gas and fuel. And then I can choose gas and just fill it in for the first one. And then there's this little circle in the bottom right. And if I get the crosshairs there, you can kind of see those little crosshairs. I can just click and then drag down. And then it's going to quickly fix all of those entries for me. That's one way. Or I can also just do a find and replace. So if I do, you know, Control F, I'm going to get this little find, you know, search feature, and I can choose more options, and I can do gas and fuel, and then I can just replace with gas. And I only want it to be on this sheet and potentially even just this specific range. And I can actually modify the range to be this entire column. Click OK, and then I'll just say replace all. And then you can see there in the background, it fixed all of those entries. So that's a couple ways where you can finesse those categories, customize them based on your needs, and then correct the data if you didn't like what Mint brought in. So that's a great starting point for getting everything's ready now. Like you've got your data from Mint, it's all categorized. You can finesse that if you want. Let me just check my notes here. This is my first time doing this webinar, so thanks for bearing with me as I figure it out. We did the foundations webinar like last week, or yeah, I think it was last week. And that one I'd done so many times, so I just kind of had it memorized. This one's a little different, so I just want to make sure I don't skip over anything that's important for y'all to know. Okay, yeah, so we've talked about whether or not you're going to stick with Mint's categories or not. You can change the categories and then use those built-in filtering and sorting features to clean up any categories you want to change. So then the next piece is, how about the ongoing categorization? Now that you're in Tiller, one thing that's different about Tiller is that we're not going to automatically categorize the transactions for you when they get filled in. As you might have noticed when you first filled the transaction data in, or you saw here in my demo, the Tiller transaction data was not categorized. And so you can manually categorize the transactions just using the drop down here. You can also just, you know, type the first few letters of the category, press enter, and then it'll fill it in for you. And that's a great way to really get in tune with your spending. Like if you know you have some problem areas and you're trying to cut back, manually categorizing transactions, like it's worth the time. It will change the way that you interact with your money, and it can really help you save money. So just recommend that, you know, if you want to change the way you interact with your money, consider manually categorizing. The thing with why we don't automatically categorize is because we can't assume to know the intent of your spending. And so we're not going to guess. And even, you know, different AI models or learning language models, like they can probably do a decent job, and Mint did an okay job, but it probably didn't really get it right for like what you wanted in your financial situation. And so we're not going to guess, but we do give you the power to automate it with a tool called AutoCAD. And so you can get that from the Tiller Money Feeds add-on here, bottom of the extensions menu, and then AutoCAD. And I'm just going to choose Open AutoCAD. And we'll talk through, installing the AutoCAT sheet. It's basically a rules engine. So you may be familiar with, Mint had a rules engine as well. And this is sort of Tiller's version that allows you to really, really customize those rules and decide how you want your transactions categorized. So I'll just choose AutoCAT, install AutoCAT here in the sidebar, and that's going to install that AutoCAT rules sheet where I can start building my rules. And so a simple way to think about it is the simplest type of rule is like if the description contains a certain keyword, then categorize it with this category. And so a great example of that, once this gets installed, like we give you an example rule of like if the description contains taco, because a lot of like taco places have taco in the name of the restaurant. And so there's a good chance if you have taco in the description that you probably want to categorize it as restaurants. So that's just an example rule that we give you. But we also give you some tools over here in the sidebar to help you build rules. So one of the first ones is just looking at the transactions from the last 90 days and then building some suggestions based on that. So it'll look for repeat transactions. And then in this case, it's got the categories already assigned because all the data is already categorized for me. And so in this case, if these look good, then I can just scroll to the bottom and I can choose, they're already categorized, so I don't need to choose create and run, but I can just click create rules and we'll kind of see how it builds the rules out here on the rules sheet. AutoCAT's really cool because it can do more than categorize transactions. It can clean up descriptions. It can tag transactions. It can add notes to transactions, all that kind of stuff. So you can see the example rules it got here. If the description contains Hurricane Express wash, then categorize as service and parts. And so the next time, this transaction for this car wash subscription comes in, and if I run AutoCAT, it's going to categorize it as service and parts. And so I can build rules right from the transaction sheet too with the simple rule builder here. I can just type the description like, coffee, if I want a very generic rule. And then what kind of category was it using for that one? I just saw it, coffee shops. So there it is, coffee shops. I can create the rule, and then anytime any description contains the keyword coffee, kind of like that taco one, it's going to categorize it as coffee shops. The last thing here with AutoCAT is recommend turning on the auto run on fill setting here, and that's going to run the AutoCAT rule set against your transactions when they get filled into the spreadsheet. And so we'll talk a little bit more about how that fill works here in just a few moments, but regarding getting your transactions categorized, staying on top of categorization, those are the couple tips that I have about that. So the next step, once you've got your data categorized, is to start thinking about your budgeting. If you want to use Tiller for budgeting, you can do that using the category sheet. You can set budget targets here in column E. And I'm just going to close this sidebar. And so I've already got some example budgets here. I can just kind of quickly paste in. So I'm just going to paste these in. And then you can see everything out to the right automatically updated. And that's just a simple formula, like February is referencing January, March is referencing February, and so on. So if I need a specific month to be unique and have a different amount than all the other months, I can easily just overwrite the value in that specific cell. So let's say in June, my car insurance is due, and that's going to be like $450 or something for a 6-month premium. So once I enter that in and press enter, all those subsequent months pick up that $450, and I don't need those subsequent months to be that high. So I can just set 0 in July, and then everything kind of corrects itself. And then maybe, in December, it's 450. So I just set it for those 2 months where I actually have that bill due. So that's how you can easily set budget targets. Once you've set them all here in column E, then you can use the monthly budget sheet to kind of get a sense for where you are. So if we jump down to the month of November, which is our current month, then we can get a sense for how we're doing. And so we can see what's available based on our current spending and how much we've budgeted. So we can see our budget here is in column F, then we get our actual, how much we've actually spent based on categorized transactions, and then we can see how much is available for that budget target. And so there's a couple items where we're over budget, like a little bit over in clothes, a little over in coffee shops, didn't have any travel budget for this month and maybe did a little bit of travel. Home improvements, same thing. So though, this is an area where we can kind of review what's available and then adjust the categories sheet budgets as needed. And so you can get the view there. You can also get a yearly view on the yearly budget sheet to kind of look at your whole year at a glance. And so these columns B, C, and D here are going to give you basically your year to date. So like what you budgeted for the entire year versus what you've actually spent so far and how much is available based on your total budget for the whole year, 12-month budget period, basically. So those are the notes about budgeting. And let me get my notes here. I had a note here about just, we're getting ready to hit 2024, right? I mean, can you believe it? It's almost 2024. And so like, what do you do about that? Because right now it's just set up, it's defaulted to January 2023. We are going to run a special Getting Your Budget Ready for the New Year webinar on December 20th. We haven't pushed the registration link for that yet, but we will have that available, I think, later this week. But, the basics of it are like, if you're brand new and you just want to kind of get a feel for Tiller in the next couple months, but then really start fresh for 2024, you can just change this from 2023 to 2024. And then it's going to update every month after that. So that's like a really, really easy way to do it. But just notice that, all these numbers below are static. So like it didn't change anything just because I updated this to 2023. So I'm just going to set that back just for the demo here. And we talked about how to review your progress against your budgets. If you're new to budgeting and you're really not sure what your budget targets should be, the monthly budget is a great way to actually get a sense for your spending. And so assuming that you brought over your Mint data that was already categorized, you could look at last month and look at the month of October and look at your actuals to see how much you actually spent in each of these categories. And as long as there wasn't something weird going on in your life that may have like increased or decreased something dramatically, then you could just use these as baselines for your budget targets for each of your categories. That's a really simple way to kind of get those targets. So what if you don't really want to budget? You just want to track spending. The spending trends sheet in the foundation template is a great way to just get a pulse on where your money's going. And so you can see everything broken out by income, expense. Here in this sort of breakdown area, you get the group, so your total spend for each of your groups, and then you get the category breakout within each of those groups, and just a spark line that's kind of comparing, it's relative to the largest one. So like, the service and parts, the amount of space it takes up is going to be relative to probably this one is like the highest one so far in this month. We get some cash flow data here that's just based on whatever is configured as the date range that you have selected here. And so in this case, it's just the past 30 days of transactions. And it's looking at total income, so anything using an income type category, and total expense, and then what was left over, basically. So like this could be savings potentially. That's sort of the idea with this very simple cash flow calculation. It's just income minus expense, and that's your cash flow. So you get some really great insights here. Also, this getting started steps up at the top, like this is a really great way to kind of get oriented into this template. This demo is a little bit different. It doesn't go through the step-by-step that's presented here. But if you want to kind of just start clean and not even care about your Mint data, like this is a great way to kind of orient yourself to getting set up in this template. There's also some awesome community solutions. And I know the folks coming from Mint, you guys are used to different types of visualizations. Spreadsheets are different, than an app because everything can be very tabular and it's in cells, and sometimes you make an edit and it breaks things. And like you didn't have that with Mint, and you had these like pretty graphs and stuff. And so there are some awesome templates that you can add onto your foundation template. So building on your foundation, using the Tiller Community Solutions add-on. They're built by community members. They're supported in the Tiller community, but they really can help power up your Tiller spreadsheet. So if I go ahead and launch here, I'll just show you a couple, just kind of having heard from some folks that came from Mint that felt like, where is this? I'm used to this in Mint. Like, where is it in Tiller? The first one, and they're both in this analysis kind of tag or category here of different types of solutions. So this is like all these different analysis solutions. You can see there's a ton here. Like I said, they're all community built and supported, but feel free to test them out. And so the first one is the category tracker. It's just a really simple sheet, but it gives you that pie chart that maybe you're used to seeing when you want to look at how much you're spending in certain categories. And so I can update the date range here depending on how much data I want to see. I can control whether I want to review it by category, which is what Mint would call subcategories, if you remember, or group, which is what Mint called categories. So I can get a broader view of that spending. I can even drill down between income or expense. And then I can increase or decrease the amount of categories I show. Yeah, as you know, if you have a ton of categories, the slices get smaller and smaller. And so it can get kind of hard to read. And so that's why the default, I think, is probably 10. But this is a great way to kind of just get that visual, like, where is my money going? You also get the total. You still have the tabular view where you can kind of get the total of the amount per category over here on the left. And this is, by income, expense, and transfer. It's not showing you just income or just expenses. And then over here on the right, you can actually drill down for a particular category and see what those the total amount per description or per merchant. And really it's per description because, like, you can see all these Ingles Markets, like, it's the same grocery store chain, it's just different. This one just had different spelling with all caps versus lowercase, so it's just giving you the amount per unique description. So that was really handy for visualizing your data and kind of drilling in. The other one that I really like is that I think a lot of folks from Mint would appreciate is this monthly analysis sheet. And so if I go here and I can choose add to spreadsheet, then it's going to allow me to get this month over month comparison of my spending, and this is defaulting to 2022, but I can change it to 2023 actuals. I can look at my expenses, and then I can choose a specific category. If I want to see, like, the visualization here of my actual versus my budget for my gas category, or if I want to just use all, I can kind of get that total, and then I can see here, and it only has data back from August, because, like I said, I didn't have a lot of data in Mint, but it gives me the month over month. So, like, what was the difference between October and September? It's going to give you some analysis there. And then you can drill down. And so in this case, I don't have a lot of data until we get over into these months, but I get a breakdown basically of, this is sort of the cash flow per month, the income, the expenses, and this was what would have been left over. So that's an interesting way to kind of visualize your data as well. But you can see there's a ton of options in here. So feel free to just add some and see, does this help me visualize my data the way that I want to see it? If you end up not using it, or you don't like it, or you don't understand it, you can just delete it. Just right click, choose delete, click OK. The last thing here in the foundation template is the balances. So if you want to check the balances of your accounts that you have linked to the particular sheet, you can use the balances sheet to do that. And the accounts sheet is intentionally blank, but it's a place where you can customize your accounts so that you can choose how they display on that balances sheet. And so, like, I'm going to assign a group here called credit cards. So then when I look at it on the balances sheet now, I can see that it's in this group called credit cards instead of ungrouped liability, like it was default. And so as I add more accounts to Tiller, I can kind of organize them. Maybe I have my investment accounts, kids' college savings funds, like things like that. I can group them the way that I want to kind of see my different accounts grouped. So as far as other things to be aware of, the Tiller Money Feeds add-on down here at the bottom of your extensions list, that's going to be critical for interacting with Tiller, making sure that your data stays fresh in the spreadsheet. So when you launch it there from the bottom of the extensions menu, you're going to see a bunch of different buttons and features and all that stuff. And so the main thing to just keep in mind is that one tip is in the settings section here, and you probably got a little alert about this the first time that you filled the sheet with data, but recommend turning on the autofill. And so this is going to automatically fill the data that we have available in our database it's scheduled, it's once a day. There's not a way to change the schedule at which it runs. It's just going to fill in whatever data we have at that time of day. It's usually between 2 and 6 a.m. So if we haven't refreshed everything, or some accounts need you to manually refresh, then it's not going to fill those in, but it will help just keep some of the data up to date. If for some reason the accounts are delayed refreshing, or you have to manually refresh them, then you'll want to make sure that you click the fill button here at the top of the Tiller Money Feeds add-on. And so just get familiar with this add-on. This is how you basically interface the Google Sheet with the Tiller service. So some other features here, just to kind of quickly go through these, are the manual accounts. Like, let's say you have, real estate property, and you want to add the value of those properties into your Tiller sheet so that your net worth reflects accurately the fact that you have all these assets, and not just the mortgages. You can add those as manual accounts, or if there's an account that Tiller can't automate, for example, or maybe there's like an outage or something right now, then you can manually track that account or add it as a manual account. And I have this situation with one of my institutions. It's just not supported. And so I just manually track it. AutoCat, we already talked through that. The templates, this is where you can add, upgrade, or repair installed templates. And so similar to the Tiller Community Solutions add-on, there are some product templates that are officially supported by our support team that you can add in here. The only one that doesn't come default in the foundation template is the insights sheet. And it's just another sort of type of visualization sheet that has some analysis information on your data that you can install in there. But then the rest of them are already going to be installed in the foundation template, but this is a way that you can restore them if you accidentally break them. So if you make some edit somewhere you're not supposed to, and then things aren't looking right, just try restoring it. Also, if we find a bug and we fix it, this will indicate that there's an update available. So this one's pretty important to know about in the Tiller Money Feeds add-on. And then there's a couple other features here. In the tools section, you can split transactions. So if you go to Walmart and half of it's like household and the other half is groceries, you can use the split transaction feature. And then there's also the add manual transactions feature. If you need to manually add transactions for an account you can't automate, or you just want to, basically go ahead and populate it in there before it's cleared, things like that. There's like a reconcile tool in the Tiller Community Solutions add-on that kind of couples with the manual transaction. If you do flag it for reconciliation, if you see that, if anyone has specific questions about that, I can try to demo it when we get to the Q&A. And we're almost there. So those are the basics in Tiller Money Feeds that are helpful things that we get questions about all the time. And usually there's somebody that's asking about the splits, for example, in the Q&A. So I just wanted to go ahead and highlight those. And then, of course, don't forget to fill the sheet. And so, now I just want to talk through a little bit of some of the differences between Tiller and Mint. So for all of y'all coming from Mint, it's very different. It's not an app. And I think probably the main difference that I've heard from folks that I've been talking to in support and doing some user interviews as well is that, we use a third-party data provider to pull your bank data. So we're not storing your credentials, and we're not, we don't build these integrations with these banks ourselves. We use a third-party tool called Yodlee. And they're the ones that are going out, making the connection to the bank, building those integrations, building the relationships with some of the banks to gather that data for us to pull it into our database. And they do this for, 9 out of the 15 largest US banks. They're the industry leader in banking data aggregation. They're trusted by those huge banks to provide basically the same service. And that's different than Mint. Mint's data aggregation came from Intuit, which is Mint's parent company, but they had their own data aggregation service that was proprietary. They had different agreements with the banks. And so the biggest feedback or confusion that we've heard from folks is, why do I have to go to the console to refresh my accounts? Why do I have to put the 2FA or security code in to get my account to refresh? And that's really just because of the bank integration with Yodlee versus with Intuit. And so that's just something, it means your accounts are secure. So having to put that secondary code in is a security measure. But it is required for some institutions. A lot of institutions, especially the bigger banks, it's not required. And so any institutions that are open banking based institutions like Capital One, for example, is one of those. Like, you don't have to put that 2FA code in every day. You just connect it. You probably put it in once, and then the connection is going to continue to automatically refresh on its own about once every 36 hours for about 90 days. You won't have to go back and like re-authenticate. And even then, I don't think you have to put in the 2FA code. You just have to go and say, hey, like, Tiller's still allowed to have access to my data. So it's a security measure. It's a good thing, but it is different. So just keep that in mind. Visit the console, refresh any accounts that haven't refreshed, and then go back in and use Tiller Money Feeds to fill your sheet. The other probably main difference is that we don't have an app. Mint was completely app-based, but that kind of boxed you in to doing things the way that they wanted you to do them. And so that's one big difference is like, we don't have an app. There's things that you can do, like on the console, there's a feature where you can display the account balances, and that's turned on by default, but you can also turn it off if you don't want your balances displayed. And that's a great way to just look at your balances on the go, because you've got all of your accounts in one place. And if you just need to see the balance, you can log into the console from your phone, review the balance. You can even refresh from your phone as well. So there are some features, and we do hope to add in more useful features onto the console to make it mobile friendly. But for now, we don't have a specific app. You can access your spreadsheets from Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel apps on your phone, but the best experience is going to be on a computer when you're actually interacting with the spreadsheet. And then the last main difference, as I already mentioned, is that the data is not categorized as a box, just because we can't assume to know the intent of your spending. And so that's where getting really friendly with AutoCat is going to be helpful in just building out those rules to make sure you have a good categorization schema for your transactions. There's some other things, I think that are different about Tiller that, in my opinion, are better about Tiller than Mint. And the first and foremost for us is that we keep your data private and secure. You are not our product. You are our customer. That's why we charge $79 a year, because we're not ever going to show you ads. We're not going to mine your data to show you ads to sell you things based on, your private data. Like, it's your data. And so we have a really, really strong stance against privacy and security. And we think that that's better and different about Tiller as compared to Mint. The second thing that I think makes Tiller better is, we're the most flexible tool out there. Like, you're not going to find another tool out there that's going to give you the level of flexibility and the ability to customize and make it your own. All those apps, like, they're going to box you in, and you're going to kind of have to do it their way. And with Tiller, like, because it's in a spreadsheet, it gives you the power to manage your money and, understand your money and touch your money the way that you want to do it. Lastly, or third here, is that we're here to help. We have a very knowledgeable, completely US-based support team. We are a small team. We don't have live chat, but we can pretty quickly get back to you anytime you need to reach us. You can just reach us here on the console, send us a message. We are having high volume right now, but like, we're grateful. We're so excited to have all you Mint folks coming to us, but like, our volume is up. So just keep that in mind. But just choose an option here. We do have some AI capable bot that might try to help answer your question depending on the option that you choose, but you always have an option to talk to someone on our team. And like, we really want to help you. And we can do that with the chat, even though it's not live chat, it's kind of first come, first serve. We've done a great job helping tens of thousands of customers get their problem solved with this method. And so we definitely are here to help. And then the last thing is, we have a vibrant community. And so I kind of showed off some of those community solutions, but if you go to community.tillerhq.com, you can see all this activity that's happening there. Just very enthusiastic customers, spreadsheet nerds, people that can help you for anything that's kind of outside the box of Tiller, the foundation template. Definitely, if you have questions about the foundation template, that sort of default template and the Tiller Money Feeds add-on, or anything with your bank feeds, like, please write to our support team, because they're going to be the best equipped and fastest to help you. But if you just have some crazy idea and you want to know if like somebody can help you build it, or if you want to see what other people have built and have shared, you can find those kinds of things in the Tiller community. And it's a really awesome place to just kind of explore once you've had a chance to to kind of get the basics down. Like I wouldn't go in there first thing. I would definitely like just kind of get those basics together before you go exploring. It's a little bit like the Wild West intentionally. So have fun exploring when you feel ready. All right, so just a few reminders before we jump into the Q&A, and we'll have about 15 minutes for questions. So once again, don't forget to refresh those accounts here on the Tiller console. Launch the Tiller money feeds from the extensions menu at the bottom to fill your spreadsheet with your latest bank data if the autofill didn't get it. And then lastly, just join and explore the community when you feel ready. All right, so let's take some questions. All right. So someone asks, what processes are followed to ensure that Tiller Community Solutions add-on are secure and free of malware? So the Tiller Community Solutions add-on is built by our team, and we control and like have complete control over the code. And so it gets regular code reviews and audits and follows like our product release process, the same as the Tiller Money Feeds add-on. So just because it's community solutions doesn't mean that community members are building in the add-on itself. Anything that gets added in that add-on, like the tools, all the tools, like the actual workflows, like the CSV import thing, like that was built by our team. The solutions, like the templates, like I installed the category tracker, this one in particular was built by, I think, Randy, or maybe even John O, who's a community member. Before they get added into the community solutions add-on, they have to go through an audit process. So the community builder will fill out a form that's like, hey, I'm requesting that my solution be added to the add-on. We review it, and we don't accept solutions that have scripts in them, which can be a form of potentially malicious code or whatever. Like, so none of the solutions that are there in the add-on in particular have scripts or anything like that. They're audited. The solutions are audited by our team to just kind of, have those protective measures for people, because we definitely have that concern as well. We do light auditing of just the things that get added to show and tell, but those are not necessarily through the community solutions add-on. One kind of way to tell is like the things that are in the add-on are usually, there's so many in here. They start with docs, and then and then they're locked. And so that is an indication that like it's in the community solutions add-on for installation versus like this one, somebody just built themselves and, you have to kind of manually copy it in, versus this live profit and loss, it's going to be available in the community solutions add-on. So that's a great question. All right, Bruce asks, I've exported my Mint data as a CSV file. It includes notes. How do I set up my import file to add the transactions and populate the notes field on the transaction sheet in Google Sheets? That's a great question. So I did try this and it didn't work. So there's not a way to use the add-on with the import feature to add those notes. You basically have to use the manual workflow to copy and paste your data over. And if we go to the Help Center here and we just search for Mint, and you'll get the resources email that you get tomorrow will include a link to this, but it's not documented in the Google Sheets steps, and that's sort of a miss on my part, and I'll try to clean that up, because that is a question that we've gotten about the notes and like the tags, I think. But just to kind of give you the steps, you would, even though it's for Excel, the same steps will basically work for Google Sheets. So instead of instead of deleting those columns, you would keep them. And then this is the formula and the sort of steps here that you can use to get the amount adjusted. So you'll notice in this download, the amounts are all like just absolute values. There's no positive, negative, but they have a transaction type code that's like debit or credit. And so like anything that's a debit and Tiller would have a negative sign in front of it in the amount column. And so the steps that are documented here for Excel talk through how to basically get the amount with the negative sign for all the debits. And it's just this kind of formula. And so if you follow these steps for Google Sheets, they should still work. And then you can use the copy paste process into your transaction sheet to get all that data over there. So hopefully that helps. And I'll try to update the Google Sheets version to make sure the steps, are exactly for Google Sheets as well, and that include this formula for correcting the amount. Great question. All right, Ben asks, I strongly prefer Excel, but it seems Excel is limited and less supported than Google Sheets. What is the plan, or is there any to further support Excel and add additional features, transaction splitting? That's a great question. What is the plan for, so we do intend to continue building out the features that are available in Google Sheets for Microsoft Excel. We started with Google Sheets back in 2015 and invested just a lot of energy in Google Sheets. And then when Microsoft announced that they were going to deprecate money in Excel, that was an opportunity for us to also capture some users from like a dying tool. And so we started investing even more heavily in Excel at that time. But we have so many priorities and such a big backlog. And so everything's always competing for engineering resources. And as we grow our engineering team, we will continue investing in Excel. I don't have timelines. I know that right now we're working on the template insertion capability for Excel. So like being able to restore or insert templates in Excel is the next up thing that we're actively working on now, because that's a big miss for Excel. And we felt like that was higher priority than like the split transaction, for example. But that'll, I think, be the next up feature after the template insertion capabilities for Excel. So we are investing there. So, don't feel like it's not getting attention. It's just slow. So great question. And then Ben also mentions that Monarch is a great utility to export Mint. Would be smart for Tiller to do something similar. I agree. We kind of looked into that, and the way that our engineering team assessed that the way that Monarch built that was not, it wasn't the best approach. And so we're not going to proceed with building our own. We like I said, we have a lot of priorities and a big backlog. So thanks for sharing that, though. Ralph asks, does the account name from the extracted data in Mint need to match exactly with the name in Tiller? It doesn't need to match. Like, there might be some templates, like the insights sheet, which is not default in the foundation template anymore. It does care about the account name, but if you're not using that sheet, then it doesn't matter. Like, this one is not referencing account name anywhere, so it doesn't care. The budgeting pieces, they don't care. The balances sheet, it's pulling from the balance history data that's a hidden sheet in your foundation template here. Balance history, can click this all sheets button and unhide any hidden sheets. And so that's where it's pulling the data from. And because we're not trying to export balance data out of Mint and import that, you just care about the transactions, right? So like, you don't need to worry about cleaning that up. So it doesn't matter in the transaction sheet. Great question. Kyle asked, do we have to use the tool to import the Mint data in, or can we just copy paste it? You can absolutely just copy paste it. And like I said, right now, the copy paste steps I only have for Excel in this help article, because there's not an import tool for Excel. But I wanted to make sure folks who wanted to use Excel had the workflow. Basically, the main thing is just correcting the amount, because it doesn't have the negative sign. So you have to kind of correct that. All right, let's see here. Kyle asks, can you pull in tags from the Mint data? Similar to the notes question, you would want to use these copy paste steps, and then you could you just paste them into a separate column. And so that, like, just to kind of speak to that a little bit, in editing the transaction sheet, which the resources link that I already have queued up has like a section, help article that talks about like customizing the transaction sheet. Basically, like, this is your data, it's your spreadsheet, you can do whatever you want. The thing that you should be aware of with like making edits to the spreadsheet is, like, for the transaction sheet specifically, you don't want to delete any of the existing keywords in the header row, in row 1. Because like I said, if you accidentally delete one of them or overwrite it, then like the add-on doesn't know how to fill the data into that column because the header keyword is missing. But you can insert columns. You're going to get that warning, like I said, because we're affecting row 1. but you can just click OK and you can have tags, for example, or you can use, note. The tiller sort of label is note. There's some community solutions that use the column note. And so note versus notes, plural. I think in Mint it was notes, but just recommend using note singular if you want to take advantage of those other features. Don't change the name of the transaction sheet or any of the other tabs. Most of these are visualizations. Like, you shouldn't be editing things in the budget sheet. If you want to change the budget for a category, you change it in the category sheet, for example. That's like a common thing that people accidentally break it by typing in the budget value here. So yeah, you can add tags. But to get them from Mint, like I said, you'll have to do the copy paste method. All right, Raphael asks, can I make a duplicate in the transactions tab before trying to update with Mint data? Can I then restore the original version if I run into problems? Oh yeah, that's a great idea. You could totally just duplicate your transaction sheet here. So you have like a backup, and you could copy paste if it messes up. The cool thing about Google Sheets, though, is that it has like version history. And so you can restore to a previous version. If you mess things up, you can just go back and restore. So that's pretty easy as well. All right, Leslie asks, why do new categories not populate for the full year? I don't know if I quite understand that question. Oh, maybe I understand. So if you add a new category, like if you insert a row and then you add a category, so new category, and then let's say it's uncategorized, it's an expense, and then you have 100 and it's not populating, it's because you inserted a row instead of using an existing row. But like if we, use this one, and we'll just say 2 because we can't have duplicates, and I type in 100, then I get that cascading across to the right. It's just because like the rows that are pre-existing, they come pre-filled with those formulas that are referencing the previous cell. But if you insert new rows, like it doesn't know about those formulas. You can easily fix that by just, setting up the formula that references the previous cell. And then you can use that quick fill handle to drag it over to the right. And then it's going to basically replicate that feature. Hopefully that answers your question. I just took a guess on what you meant there, but let me know if that doesn't help, Leslie. Ben asks, what is the recommended method for handling investment goals, automatic paycheck deductions, 401k, HSA, etc.? That's a great question. So as far as like categorizing the transactions, we have in beta right now. It's not available to install anywhere. It's not even just in beta. I think if we go here, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but savings goals. Let me see if I can find it. This one, yeah. So there's a savings goal dashboard that we have in beta. We're collecting feedback. So if you try it out, especially if you use Mint's goals feature, definitely try it out and share your feedback in this topic in the community. You can get it just using the steps. It's a manual sort of like copy into the spreadsheet. So you can do that by copy the URL. And then I also know I have a lot of questions and we're running out of time. I'm happy to go over time. I don't have anything else going on after this. But if you need to drop because it's the top of the hour, like feel free, but I'll just keep going and try to get through some more of these questions. So I'm just pasting this. Sorry, I kind of skipped over some steps, but you just right click and choose copy to, and then existing spreadsheet. And then you can paste in the URL of the spreadsheet. And then I'm going to move this over here. And those steps are in that. And so now I've got the savings goals. Now these are all just like example goals, and they don't like, I don't actually have any asset accounts linked to the spreadsheet. But if I did, I could select them here and it would kind of start funding the goals. So it's not a great demo, but if you want to look at the goals and how much you've saved toward them, this is a way that you can experiment with that. There's not anything like officially supported right now, but this is sort of the runner up for like a supported workflow for tracking your savings goals. As far as the transactions go, because we only have income, expense, or transfer type categories, we don't have a savings type. Usually the recommendation is to just use an expense type category, like, savings. And maybe it's, it's retirement, for example. And then this is investments and it's expense. And then, you're saving $200 a month or whatever. Then you would just categorize one side of the transaction. So, if it's an outflow from your checking account, you probably want to use the outflow from the checking account because it's an expense type to categorize those retirement, transfers basically. And then if you have the retirement account also linked, you're going to see the other side of the transfer, the positive inflow amount, and you can just categorize that as a transfer type. And that just helps your budget kind of keep track of the fact that like you're allocating money that shouldn't be spent randomly, like it basically affects like your available cash flow or like your planned cash flow. So like $200 is being set aside for retirement. So it's not available. It's just like extra money that you could spend on whatever. As far as like the paycheck deductions and stuff, like if those, like most of the time, like those don't show up as transactions. And so like you would need to either manually add the transactions, or there are some paycheck deduction like workflows available in the community. There's nothing that we support out of the box that's going to like automate the breakout of your deductions or whatever. But hopefully that gives you some ideas. I would definitely search in the community on that topic because I know there's a good bit of discussion over there. All right. Someone asked, I would love to see a graph of my grocery spending over time. How do I do this? I think that the monthly analysis sheet that I demoed is a good option. I deleted it out of here, but hopefully you saw me demo that and hopefully that helped. Jarrett asks, I like to keep historic Mint categories that I no longer use, but remove them from my budgeting. How can I do that while still keeping them in the reports? I want to see reports and graphs of historic spending, but remove those categories from my current budgeting efforts. That's tricky in Tiller just because if you don't have it here as a category, then if it's categorized that way in your transactions, and I'm going to delete this copy because it keeps throwing me off. If you have that category here in your transactions and it's not in the category sheet, you're going to get that red, sort of error thing. I mean, you could have them in here and you could hide the rows. Like if you don't want to see them, you can just right click and like hide those rows. Oops, didn't mean to clear them. I meant to hide them. So that way you're not getting those errors in the transaction sheet and, the categories are still there. That's one idea. Hopefully that helps. Okay, Cal asks, on AutoCAT, will it change old transactions too that you don't want changed? So no, out of the box, AutoCAT, and let me just open it up. Out of the box, AutoCAT only runs against uncategorized transactions. So when you manually run it, it's sort of defined by this only uncategorized transactions. This run AutoCAT rules on setting. So right now it's defaulted to only uncategorized transactions, and it will always be the default every time you open it. Like unless you change it to all transactions, that one time you run it, it's going to use that. The next time you open it, it'll be back to only uncategorized transactions, I think. But either way, by default, it's not going to go back and try to recategorize things. And when it automatically runs on fill, if you have the setting on, it's only looking at new transactions that haven't been added to the transaction sheet. And so those are uncategorized by default. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, Nona asks, is it possible for budget amounts to roll over month to month? Not in the foundation template out of the box. There is a savings budget that's a different template that's community supported that you can add to the foundation template and use instead of our default budgeting that does allow for rollovers month over month. Brent asked, do monthly losses or positive balances carry forward to the next month? I think that was the same question that I just answered. So I'm going to skip that one. Ronesto asked, will this session be recorded so I can reference it in the future? Yes. So you'll get a link with you'll get an email tomorrow with a link to some resources and the recording. Justin asked, where can you find community built add-ons to the foundation spreadsheet for Excel since the community add-on is not available. So there are some community built solutions in the community in the show and tell. I thought I had it. I guess I don't have that tab open anymore. Microsoft Excel show and tell. And so these, there's a few in here now, quite a few actually. And you can just manually add those into your Excel workbook, and the steps for how to do that are linked in each of those topics for that particular solution. It's pretty easy, but there are some, just read the steps carefully, but you can get them from the community as well. There's just not an add-on right now to do it. All right, Kevin asks, on the spending trends tab, can you drill into the category to see the actual transaction and make up the total? No, there's not a way to do that. That's a question we get very commonly, and we've explored trying, like, is there a way to do it? And we just haven't found a way to do it. The main thing would be probably in the category tracker, you kind of get that with the amount per unique merchant or description over here on the right, per category. It's not all the exact transactions. It's like, it's summing per unique description. But you can use the filtering features in the transaction sheet to pretty easily do that. It's not as quick as like just one click, take me to all those transactions, but you can pretty easily kind of get to like, air travel, for example, drill down and just look at those. Great question. All right, a couple more here. Can I set up separate spreadsheets for different members of the family for accounts and transactions? Yes, so you can link up to 5 spreadsheets to Tiller. And 5, it's just 5. You can mix and match Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, and then you can mix and match the accounts that are linked to that particular sheet. Avi asked, the most important feature to me that Mint has that I can't find anywhere is that I can see all my credit card statement balances and the due date in one place. Is that something that exists in Tiller or something you're working on? Not specifically with just the credit card balances. There are some community solutions that are like bill payment trackers, but it can be used for all your bills. So there's I don't know if there's something that exactly sort of fits that need, but I would definitely not out of the box in the default template, the foundation template, but definitely recommend searching the community to see if there's something out there that fits that need. All right, for investments, how would reinvested dividends, capital gains be handled? That's just going to be based on your transactions, your category schema, and there's some great topics in the community on that. I would definitely recommend checking out the threads that are over there, because it's really up to you how you want to categorize them. All right, Jarrett asks, how do I add historic balance history? I know the default spreadsheet won't show me more than a year back, but I want the balance history so I can see the net worth over time graph since I started tracking my money. So you could add balance history similarly to the way that the transaction history was added. I've had these accounts connected to Tiller for a long time, so it's not as like reflective of someone that's new, but basically we can pull the balance only on the day that you added the account. And so like if you have a year, of balance history in Tiller, to me, it sounds like you've been using Tiller for a while, which is great. If you want to add more, you just basically can fill in the data per the columns that are here. The most important, one of the most important columns is the account ID, and just making sure that you use the same account ID that Tiller is using. Otherwise, it's going to perceive it as a different account, or it's not even going to pick up the balances that you enter. So just keep that in mind. But balance ID, you don't really need that. Month and week is probably helpful for some of the graphing, and the status column that's here, like that, you don't need to worry about. So hopefully that helps. All right. Someone asked, are retirement planning features available? There's some community options for that as well. Definitely recommend searching in the community. And this community solutions add-on for Google Sheets does have some templates you can add on for that. Amy asked, there's a tab on my sheet called accounts, but is that not where you link add your accounts? Where do you link add accounts again? So once you connect an account here on the console by add accounts, you can click on the sheet name and then you can check the box to link an account to the spreadsheet. You'll then need to open the sheet and fill the data in. You can also do that from the connected accounts section in the Tiller Money Feeds add-on. And so you can link additional accounts here. And when you do it from the sheet, if you click confirm, it'll automatically fill new accounts that you had linked. So great question. The accounts sheet, as I mentioned, is just where you can customize the way the accounts are grouped so that you can, you can organize them on your balance sheet. All right. I think that's all the time I've got for questions, but I'll take a look at the ones that I didn't get to answer and I'll try to include them in the resources, in the Q&A section of the resources that will be available tomorrow. So we'll send you an email, like I said, with a link to resources, a bunch of help articles and kind of the things that I talk through, as well as a recording of this session so you can rewatch it. And I'll try to make sure that all the questions get included in that resource so that you'll have answers. Even though I didn't get to answer them live, I can kind of point you in the right direction. So I really appreciate all of y'all joining me for this webinar. I hope you have a great afternoon or evening, and thanks for trying Tiller. And if you need us, we're there to help you and support. Just reach out to us using the chat tool here on the console. All right, happy tracking, y'all. See ya.